Hello and welcome everyone. I have a channel-centric announcement to make. I am changing my name. I know this kind of comes out of nowhere for many of you, and I assure you it's not a decision I came to lightly. I have sincere reasons for this choice, which I can't help feeling I owe you all an explanation for. As this deals with some very personal subject matter, I warn you at the start, this may end up an intensely emotional video. I'll start with the why, which requires a certain amount of preface. And in case anyone asks, no, I'm not trying to atone for anything, I'm not just shaking things up for the novelty, I'm not trying to escape any PR incidents, it's nothing like that. I just need the change, and I need it for some very personal reasons. I've mentioned a couple of times the origin of my current screen name, Mr. Black. However, I've never explained it in personal detail on camera. And it is critically important to me that you all understand why I've chosen to close that chapter of my life and start a new one. I could explain it as I record this now, however, I raised the subject with our chat regulars on stream a couple of evenings ago, and I'll simply cut that footage in here as a measure of preserving my voice. The short version is, to recap for those of you like Noah just mentioned, for those of you who don't know the origin of the screen name I've chosen, is that it comes from when I was in high school, and it's just a name that's kind of stuck. When I've mentioned a few times, I've lost no small number of friends in my 26 years, and
More than you should.
yeah, many more than I should. Like 3 in high school, a couple in college, and I was about to say 1 just a few months ago, although that's not quite accurate. It was just confirmed a few months ago. Several to suicide, 1 to a drunk driver, another to a swimming accident in the Gulf Coast who just disappeared in a storm, and the last that I just mentioned to kidnapping and presumed murder. So what that all came from in terms of my reaction to it is, at the time when a lot of that was happening, I was a very stoic and angry person. I wasn't very outwardly emotional, and so I kind of internalized a lot of things, and rather than really working through a lot of things at the time, I was very set in my desire to at least show respect to the people I'd lost. And so I started to wear black all the time as a sort of a funerary day-to-day. Like, I never wanted to let go of those people, and it was I admit now, I see now, I didn't realize at the time, a means of me never really letting go, of not necessarily dealing with it. And it wasn't until recently, when the court proceedings were going on for my friend that disappeared 5 years ago, that I really started to deal with a lot of them all at once. I thought I was only really dealing with hers, and apologies. For the first time, I actually started to work through a lot of those people. And I should be happy because it worked. Like, I feel as though, never mind that I'm choking up right now, I've actually lifted a significant weight off of myself. And like, a lot of that isn't dragging me down anymore. And so now, in the last couple of weeks, it's really started in a way I never anticipated to affect me in representing myself with the nickname that came from friends who just kind of saw and commented on that I was always wearing black. That's where it came from. It came from my friends who just started calling me that in high school. Some of which understood why, some of which didn't. It just kind of stuck. And so when we were getting started with Last Level Press, I put weeks worth of thoughts into the name of the company, I guess you'd call it, of Last Level Press proper, of the structure, of the name of it. And it only really occurred to me when I started doing video content that, oh yeah, I need, like, a name for me. And I just sort of defaulted to this old name that the origins of I hadn't yet worked through. So it wasn't until I started to work through those that, for some reason, it started giving me, like, anxiety to attach myself to that. Yeah, like I didn't realize how much it was actually affecting me until it was actually last night. After dinner, I sat down and I started to get ready to record, and it was the first time ever that when it came time to record, I straight up choked out. Like I I couldn't do it. And it was the anxiety that did it to me. As I mentioned, I never anticipated that this could start affecting me the way it has. When I first chose my screen name, when we founded Last Level Press, I was just so eager at the time to get started. I'd just come off a job I hated. I had a chance to do something really different that I could call my own. I was finally starting something I cared about and that I could get excited for. And I put so much thought and effort into Last Level Press itself. I just sort of defaulted to an old nickname of mine when I realized I still needed a screen name. I realize now I made a mistake, although I'm not certain I could have known that at the time, not having worked through the inherent issues anchored in the name and not realizing I hadn't dealt with them yet. I just need a fresh start identity-wise. I need to let go of the weight I've kept from my past if I'm ever to fully recover from it. And I've realized, as much as it scares me, that I'm finally ready to do so. And I'm sorry for any confusion this may cause on the channel for a while. I made some amateur mistakes when I got started with all this, and I'm simply paying for them now, and I apologize for inconveniencing any of you all in that process. One of the marks of a successful channel, I like to think, is adaptability, and certain elements of a channel are easier to change over time. As the market shifts, as we learn new things, as we acquire new talents for things like cutting and editing and on-screen performance, as plans change and as people change. And I have, and I think it's time my name on this channel adapts to that. And I want you to know that this isn't something that just recently came to mind for me. It's not a snap decision. I've had it on my mind for a while now, and I've gone either way with it several times as I wrestled with the emotions of it all. I kept coming to one emotionally charged conclusion after another, and I actually came to my final conclusion when, after several discussions with Vi and with our stream regulars, whose inputs I value very highly, I made a concentrated effort to step away from all of the emotional complications and calmly ask myself some very simple, practical questions. The way that I would if I were trying to help someone else out with a similar issue. One of those questions was, were it not for LLP, would I still want to use that name? And the reflexive answer is no. And I trust my reflexes as a judgment of where my deep-seated emotions actually lie. So the next question then is, since LLP is the reason I felt resistance to the change, is that name critically important to the actual professional administration of the channel, to how I make my living with it? And again, the answer is no. And the reason for that, professionally speaking, is simple. The channel itself is already established. I'm simply changing the name I'm using rather than any of the persona or the style of content I'm producing. All of that will remain the same. And nothing that people are actually seeing, none of what draws them to click on the content of the channel at a glance, the name of the channel itself, the logo, what they see in their subscription feed, etc., none of that is changing. Last Level Press itself is staying exactly the way it is, so while it may momentarily confuse some people, understandably so, and I think it's reasonable for there to come some confusion there, to hear me use a new name at the start of an episode, they've already clicked on it. They're already watching it. And I'm still me. So while I know it'll take some getting used to for a while, I can't see it actually impacting the channel itself on a professional level when I run myself through the practical steps of it. And I know this entire video is just me justifying a decision I've already made to you all, and I know the vast majority of you either can't care at all as long as I'm still recording, in which case you've probably already clicked away until I upload another real episode, or are perhaps in full support of my decision, as you want what is, going to please me most, what I'll end up happiest with, and either way, I cannot thank you enough. I realized when I heard the input of our stream regulars that whatever I choose to call myself, I have the support of this community, and that frees me to make whatever decision is the most gratifying and satisfying for me. And I cannot say how much that means to me. It's just, it was such a part of me for so long, and not just here, prior to. It's kind of scary to let it go, you know? I think Violeta said it very well when I first talked to her about this. She said, "You don't want to live in perpetual mourning anymore." And I don't. I can't. I can finally let go of where that name came from. And I am fighting my voice to stay steady right now. I've finally dealt with the source of so much of the sorrow that colored, no pun intended, who I was for a long time, and I need to move on. I apologize for putting myself in such a position that doing so affects this channel. Again, I made a mistake tying my screen name to something so personal, and I hope you all can understand that. And, you know, they say amongst comics, stand-up comics, mind you, that the funniest people amongst them are often the most damaged. They've seen how dark it can get, and some part of them yet resists it and wants to help shield others from it and light up their lives through comedy. And I can relate to that. I can really relate to that. In fact, as some of you may not know, I actually considered while I was still in college chasing a potential career in stand-up comedy. Never went much farther than one open mic night, however. And you know, Vi told me something else that really resonated with me when she and I were discussing the name change when I hadn't yet made up my mind. She said, "I've made a difference in the lives of a lot of people, and I've done it as Mr. Black. And whether it's helping people get through the day with videos they enjoy, or having created a community that people have made real friendships within, either way, that's something significant." And I considered for a while, and was a part of why I wanted the input of some of our stream regulars and our community members, attempting to redefine emotionally what that name means to me, redefining it with what it means to many of you. I asked our stream regulars exactly that, and the kinds of responses I got very nearly moved me to tears of a very different variety. Sad to say, though, while I can see intellectually and I can appreciate all of that input and all of that support, such a much more positive meaning, I wish I could internalize that. The roots of those old memories, however, they run too deep, and I just can't change them on an emotional level. And while as much as a part of me wants to remain humble about it, I know I have helped people. And even as small as we are here on the channel, I think letting go of this weight, allowing myself that step toward chasing my own happiness, I can extend that into my work and into this community, and the results from that, I think, I can help even more. So, anyway. So, all of that emotion and everything aside, what will all of this mean for the channel? Very little, actually. I'm still me. I'm still as loud and convoluted and all that as I'm not changing any running jokes. All of the content is remaining the same. And I'm keeping the channel itself completely as is, although I may finally polish and update our logo as I've meant to for a long time fairly soon. No choking. As I meant to fairly soon. I'm just changing my screen name. I'm rephrasing a little of my intro. I might increase the variety of some of my credit roll music tracks. I've found some really cool ones lately. And I might try a few new, somewhat more relaxed series and ideas, especially where vlogs are concerned. I want to do more of those. And in case any of you were worried, I'm not canceling anything. You can still expect the exact same sort of content you first came here for, so no need to worry. Even my proclivities for a certain color shall remain, sans the implication that stylistic choice once had. And for the record, my outro is staying too. I'll still wish you all good gaming and Godspeed, as I always have. though I might allow myself a little country tick, and thank you kindly for watching. So, when does all of this go into effect? Semi-immediately. In my perfectionism, I'm not comfortable changing the intros and the names of currently ongoing series, things like Mod Spotlights notwithstanding, which is more of a genre than an actual series, so I'll keep the old style for those through to their conclusions, and anything new that I start, I'll use the new name for, and sort of grandfather it in that way. It means there will end up a sort of weird transitionary period as certain series overlap, however, it's the cleanest way I could come up with going about it. And I've also set myself a deadline for, as well, to wrap any series using the old name within the next month, as Vi and I are taking a couple of week-long trip with her folks in mid-August, and I want to have all of those series wrapped prior to that. That way I can really enjoy the vacation, I can let my mind relax, sort of refresh my old habits, and I can come at things clear and reinvigorated once we return. And on that note as well, no need to worry about a lack of content while we are away during that time. I'm setting aside a lot of time over the next few weeks to record as much content as I can, edit it, render it, upload it, and schedule it to release through YouTube so that at least one episode per day is released while we are away. I'm aiming at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time each day, in case you're curious. I'm also planning on trying my hand at a little travel logging while we're away on our trip across the desert, so you guys, especially our European audience, can look forward to seeing a little guided tour of West Texas and a little of New Mexico with Vi and myself once we return. And never mind how serious this video was, I'm actually feeling very good about this decision. I feel relieved. I feel like a weight is finally lifted from me, and I'm actually very excited to throw myself at my work anew, clean of the specter of yesteryear. So, from now on, I am Kinsmarck of Last Level Press, and damn if that isn't liberating to say. So, thank you kindly for watching, and for your patience in all this, and as always, I wish you all good gaming, and Godspeed.